For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, so will the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. In part 5, I propose that the heart of the earth refers to the fact that Christ, as the last Adam, brought to light the third stage of the life-giving essence of resurrection in the earth of the first man Adam, that is, in the natural and carnal essence of our being. To put it plainly and collectively speaking, we are the heart of the earth. In agreement, Paul said the resurrection of the dead is sown in corruption. So the first man, Adam, typifying death and darkness, is just as necessary as the last Adam, typifying life and light. Remember, both day and night are absolutely critical and indispensable components in the process of a seed growing into a fruit-bearing tree. Neither can function effectively without the other. They are two sides of the same vital coin. No wonder David wrote, "Indeed, the darkness shall not hide from you. The night shines as the day. The darkness and the light are both alike to you." In his article, 3 Days and 3 Nights in the Heart of the Earth, Elwin Roach proposes that the heart of the earth is a figure of speech referring to Jerusalem, based on the fact that the heart of anything speaks to those things we put great value on, such as the heart of a matter or heart of Dixie, and so on. When we bring this thought to Ezekiel 5:5, where God calls Jerusalem the center of the nations, we have confirmation, especially when we contrast it with Deuteronomy 32:10, where the Lord speaks of his people as the apple of his eye. The word apple refers to the pupil or middle of the eye. A city is about people, so Jerusalem as the heart of the earth and apple of his eye agrees with our perspective of the first man, Adam. This perspective does not change the fact that there were 3 actual days and nights surrounding the crucifixion. What 3 days and nights does this refer to? Tradition says they apply to Christ in the tomb, but is this really the case? For an alternative view, let's consider the following. Please note my insertions. From that time, Jesus began to show to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed and be raised the 3rd day. Here we find a threefold statement from Matthew regarding the Lord's impending crucifixion and resurrection. As noted, the first day begins with the Lord going to Jerusalem, or heart of the earth, agreeing with Matthew 12:40. Based on the second part of this statement, this is where his suffering truly begins. Now let's bring in the following. For you will not leave my soul in Hades, nor will you allow your Holy One to see corruption. He, foreseeing this, spoke concerning the resurrection of the Christ, that his soul was not left in Hades, nor did his flesh see corruption. Following the baptism of the Holy Spirit on the day of Pentecost, Peter preaches to the crowd, quoting Psalm 16, stating that God would not allow the Lord's flesh to see corruption. This being the case, consider what Jim and I returned when I asked how long it takes for a dead body to corrupt. The following details may be disturbing to some listeners. The process of a dead body beginning to corrupt is more accurately described as decomposition, and it starts almost immediately after death. Here's a general timeline of the initial stages. Immediately after death, the heart stops, blood circulation ceases, and the body begins to cool down. Blood starts to settle in the lower parts of the body due to gravity, causing discoloration. Muscles begin to relax. Within minutes, cells, deprived of oxygen, start to die and release enzymes that begin to break down tissues. This can cause a sheen on the skin and the loosening of the top layer. Within a few hours, around 2 to 4 hours, rigor mortis, the stiffening of muscles, begins to set in. This process typically progresses over the next several hours. Within 24 to 72 hours, internal organs start to decompose. Rigor mortis will be fully established and then gradually dissipate. Skin blisters may form. Bacteria in the digestive system start to break down the intestines, leading to the production of gases. The Lord's flesh did not see corruption. Yes, I know what the traditional view is, but according to this information, corruption, or more accurately, decomposition, starts almost immediately after death. Might we need to reconsider the traditional perspective? So, let's come back to the idea of the 3 days and nights corresponding to what Jesus said in Matthew 16:21. Note the passage along with the simple list I created. Let me remind you that the 3 days and 3 nights is not an idiom, but refers to a literal 72 hours, not parts of days and nights as tradition proposes. Furthermore, even up to this present day, the Jewish day consists of sunset to sunset. For this reason, Joseph of Arimathea asked Pilate for the body of Jesus that he might place him in the tomb before sunset, the start of the high Sabbath of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Evening is stressed, staying in keeping with the first Passover. Now, look once more at the list of 3 days and 3 nights. If it's correct, then the third day is the same day as the crucifixion. This agrees with the following. Now it came to pass, when Jesus had finished all these sayings, that he said to his disciples, "You know that after 2 days is the Passover, and the Son of Man will be delivered up to be crucified." In agreement with the list, Jesus says, after 2 days is the Passover. This is the third day, the day he is crucified. It was on the evening of the Passover that his body was placed in the tomb. So how do we answer the idea of no corruption? Please consider. Behold, I tell you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. In these passages, Paul discusses resurrection, describing it as a mystery, one in which we are changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. He refers to this change as raised incorruptible, and immediately follows with, "For this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality." Unless I'm mistaken, does this not suggest that Jesus changed the moment he died, before his body was even placed in the tomb? In keeping with our list, both his death and resurrection occurred on the third day, and he was changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. Yes, his body was placed in the tomb. However, once the tomb was sealed, the Lord was not seen again until the day after the weekly Sabbath. Was his body in the tomb the whole time? If so, it would have seen corruption. However, is it not possible that it had changed to an incorruptible body, perhaps the same body that Jesus declared as flesh and bones in Luke 24:39? Or maybe that body disappeared the moment the tomb was sealed. Either way, and in keeping with prophecy, there was no corruption. What about the last trumpet? How does this figure into all of this? First, we must recognize that this trumpet is not literal, but symbolic, and in keeping with Revelation 1:10 and 4:1, refers to the voice and words of Christ himself. What did Jesus tell Martha? "I am the resurrection." What did Jesus tell the Pharisees? "My Father loves me, because I lay down my life that I may take it again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of myself. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it again." Friend, Do the words of Christ not apply to Christ himself? Of course. So, being the resurrection, Christ was resurrected in accordance with his own words, which are, in fact, the Father's words.